This one's Liz Kendall, Secretary for Work and Pensions, basically, and she has the worst glasses I've ever seen in my life.
We will not means test PIP, because disabled people deserve extra support, whatever their incomes.
Well done, you did something the Tories didn't do.
And Mr. Speaker, I can confirm we will not freeze PIP either. Instead, our reforms will focus support on those with the greatest needs. We will legislate for a change in PIP, so people will need to score a minimum of 4 points in at least one activity to qualify for the daily living element of PIP.
So what they're doing is they're making it harder to qualify for it. So they're taking a victory lap. So they're saying, oh, we're not freezing it or anything like that. They're going to change the eligibility for it. So this PIP was a Conservative policy introduced by the Conservative Party, you know, that right-wing party, you know, the one that slashed the state dramatically about a decade ago. And these are moving further right than David Cameron's party, the Austerity Party. You know, that coalition government, yeah, we've gone way past them.
From November
Look at the state of these, fam. You know, you think Lord Ali needs to sort you out some specs.
2026. This will not affect the mobility component of PIP and only relates to the daily living element. And alongside this, we will launch a review of the PIP assessment, led by my right honourable friend, the Minister for Social Security.
I can't lie, Roisin, these might be the worst sets of glasses I've ever seen.
And disability in close
There's a lot going on, bro.
consultation with disabled people, the organisations that represent them, and other experts. So we make sure PIP and the assessment process is fit for purpose now and into the future. And Mr. Speaker, this is a significant reform package that is expected to...
Yeah, it's the first live stream in a while. I'm going to basically clip this into a video. That's the plan.
...save over £5 billion in 2029-30, and the OBR will set out their final assessment of the costings next week.
So yeah, you know, she's going to hide behind the OBR. So let's have a look at this. So some of the stuff being proposed is people under the age of 22 could be prevented from claiming universal credit top-up payments for health conditions. So if you're under the age of 22, don't get sick. Nothing could surprise me at this point. I live it. Trust it, bro. Honestly, man, my expectations for this government were low, but man, oh man. So what you have here, people under 22 could be prevented from claiming certain benefits because the government thinks there's too many young people unemployed, and instead of putting in the support first for these people, they want to punish them first with, you know, really long waiting lists. Even though Labour are cutting the waiting list, they're still going to be incredibly long for people to get the support, because you do the carrot and then the stick. You don't do the stick first. It's good to be back, bro. And so yeah, so the government have responded to the concerns of MPs and charities. Because remember, the government briefed this originally. You know, you had people briefing this. Or where did they get the information from? Because if it wasn't true, the government could have shut down the speculation about a week ago. So Kendall said eligibility for PIP, the main disability benefit in England, Wales and Northern Ireland, would be tightened from November 2026. So they're going to get a flood of applications. The money's not a lot, £72 a week. And there was a person who has autism on BBC Live recently who said he uses his PIP allowance to get therapy because the NHS doesn't have the allocation for the therapy that he needs. So again, we're wasting money in the private sector here on this stuff because the NHS isn't fit for purpose. This here is so stupid, honestly. And I was watching Shami Chakrabarti, right, in this segment, and I think she's very wrong in what she says. I think her analysis and someone else's analysis is very wrong in terms of saying like the government were doing this in order to take away some of the bad stuff for clout. I don't think they were doing this for clout. What this was a big feint. So I was actually meant to have this clip ready. Let me see if I can... Oh no, sure, I'm going to clip this, so there's no point. But in boxing, you throw a feint to set up a bigger punch or a different punch. So what they did was they feinted with these disability cuts in order to put through the PIP freezes. So it looks like a massive climb down when it's not. They feinted people out. That's what's happened here. They haven't done this change for clout. You know, what George Osborne used to do is he would do, in the October budget, he'd announce things like a beer tax for April. And then what he would say is he'd get rid of the beer tax in April when April came round and said, because of the hard work of the Conservative government, we don't no longer have to do this tax. That's what he would do. But this is different, because what you've done is basically leaked something out about a week before. You've seen how bad the public backlash is, but also you had the plan, not just a kite flying exercise. This is so much more than a kite flying exercise. This was designed in order to really get as much media attention as possible, so when the climb down happens, you can get something bad through. You can land a right hand effectively behind your fake, and that's what they've done here. So I think Chakrabarty's analysis, which we'll listen to, along with some other people's, I think they're wrong, but I don't think it's more of an opinion rather than a fact.
I've listened to all sorts of people saying, read the Green Paper tomorrow or whenever it comes out, which I anxiously will do, and we shouldn't just respond to speculation in the media. Where did the speculation come from? It wasn't invented by you or Matthew or other journalists. There was leaking and briefing and spinning for weeks.
And has that done damage?
Of course it has. Listen to Alicia and Ellen. So whatever the outcome tomorrow or the next day, shame on those.
Professor Steve J. Keane, I'll try and have a look.
Those people playing politics, those spin doctors and special advisors who've been playing this game at the expense of people's mental health.
That's your government.
Steve Keane, okay.
Well, some people in the government who,
Some people in the government, no, ministers. These are ministers and special advisors doing this. Don't say it's just some geezer in the government doing this. These are people within the Department of Work and Pensions who have briefed this. It's very clear these were top ministers that have done this.
Who speak for ministers and speak for the government and then brief their primaries to come out and say don't respond to speculation. So this little game, this little Westminster game of leaking and briefing, look at the potential costs, including mental health costs.
Is it the right thing to do in principle?
If we're cutting benefits from people who on our own case are suffering from disabilities and illnesses, including mental illnesses, it is wrong in principle. I agree with Ed Balls. It's not a Labour thing to do. It's not even a human thing to do. It's not a Tory thing to do.
I mean, it is a Tory thing to do. That's why they introduce certain benefits anyways.
It's not a Labour thing to do, to cut from people who are in trouble, who have...
The Tories have been doing it for over a decade, when they did strivers versus shirkers versus strivers and all of that stuff. That's what it was designed to do. They put through a wedge between people in work and people who were receiving welfare effectively. Leaking like that would have made people so anxious, and they knew that, but that was the whole point. It was a big setup for this, so they could make certain cuts to PIP and get it through and make it look like there was a massive climb down. There's a whole article in the FT which we'll go through in a minute.
You never improved anybody's mental health by pushing them further into poverty. So
Fact.
I will do as I'm told, and I will read the Green Paper and not listen to the spin. But the spin in itself has done damage to us politically and has caused lots of vulnerable people, as we heard from Ellen and Alicia, a lot of hopefully unnecessary anxiety.
People have had breakdowns from this stuff, from what I've read and heard. People have been made very ill from these things because they don't know how they're going to make ends meet in a situation where they're already struggling. The idea that anyone really lives a life of luxury and benefits is completely nonsense. Do you think the Tories would leave such a welfare system in place? It's crazy business. And this is Liz Kendall, who's being interviewed by Anushka of ITV, who originally got the briefings in the first place. So it's quite interesting. She keeps going to this person, that her team keep briefing this person. Certain ministers brief the Times, certain ministers and people in the DWP keep going back to ITV for some reason.
Changes. Well, the OBR will be coming forward with its independent assessment of the numbers affected.
But you must know that before you announced it.
I understand why you will push me on this question. But we've been really clear that we believe in the independence of the OBR. So
you have to do risk assessments and other reports on this stuff because you're the one who's pushing through these changes. You have to have done some sort of assessment on this. If you haven't, you are sending people to their deaths effectively. That's what you're going to be doing by not allowing certain people to get these personal independent payments later on down the line with this change. This is absolute cowardice.
We'll have to wait until
Why
the
haven't
spring.
you published that today?
Until you wait for, because the OBR has to go through its process of looking at all the proposals, making.
No, it doesn't. It just, you're talking about change to personal independence payment, right? So she refused to say how many people will lose out under PIP. I don't think, does the OBR even cover that? They'll look at it from a financial point of view. Like, it doesn't make any sense. You have to have done an assessment on this because they set the criteria out for change.
Its own independent.
So do you not
assessment.
know how many people will?
Yeah, it was Kendall and Reeves. Like, Phil can't blame other commentators for speculating on stuff because it was literally in the reason why this whole thing went into the media, because they pushed this. They pushed it specifically. When you brief this person here at ITV, the deputy political editor, it's going to be on the TV. It's not going to be just in the written press. This is probably the easiest way to get something out in big time. Leak it to a TV, someone who works in the media on TV. That's what they did. Phil blaming other people is just straight cowardice. He should be blaming the people within the DWP, not the DUP, the Democratic Unionist Party. They should be blaming the other people. This is crazy.
Will be affected.
You will have to wait till you see the OBR and
Coward.
its view.
Absolute coward. Get lost. Absolute coward. And so when we look at this situation, right, there's this in the FT. There's some Labour MPs believe the freeze, so the personal independence freeze, which they were talking about, was never a serious idea. One senior MP said it was a tactic to make it look like they've made concessions and the actual cuts aren't as bad. One Treasury official said the proposal had never been taken seriously in the department. Labour, so this is what I mean here, guys. This was a massive feint. They didn't do this for clout, to say like, oh, guys, we didn't really have to do this in the end, because that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. They could have said, oh, the media are lying here, and made the media look silly. But ultimately they didn't. They didn't do that. And then the question is how, if you pull a move like that, which is dumb, is how did the media get the information in the first place? Who's advising them? Who are their sources? Because from what we know, most of the time when it comes to stories like that, they have good sources within the government. Because if you keep leaking bad information, they ain't going to believe you no more. So this was more than a kite flying exercise, and I think this is right. It was a massive feint to get through these other policies, like the changing of eligibility. Because what you do is you give people a fake victory. You tell them, you make them think that they made the government climb down. They were prepared to do that from the start. You offer a fake concession. This is so obvious that it doesn't even work as a tactic, especially when you're so dumb and so desperate for media attention. You go out in the media and say it. Oh, look, guys, we weren't even planning to do these changes anyways. It was just a massive trick. We tricked all our Labour MPs because they're stupid. Idiots. You don't reveal tactics like this in short notice. Like, it's very obvious what happened here. Crazy behaviour. Last Friday, so this tweet from the 15th. So she's talking about the 8th of March, Labour leaked their disability cuts plan to ITV, leading to panic, despair, hopelessness, and a noticeable spike in suicidal ideation in disabled communities. Rachel Reeves wouldn't have noticed this, though, because she was enjoying a free box at a Sabrina Carpenter gig. So she was getting freebies. So she's reignited this whole freebies route because she was there at Sabrina Carpenter. Crazy. You got this memo from number 10 describing being disabled or chronically ill, unable to work as a life of inactivity. So this is the stuff they were briefing the press on, because again, these sorts of memos have been leaked for a reason. Asked about the reports of cabinet warnings about cuts, Starmer's deputy spokesperson said he could not get into details of cabinet discussions and defended the planned cuts. The system we've inherited will swallow up more taxpayers' money and leave more people trapped in a life of unemployment and inactivity, he said. That's not bad for the economy, it's bad for people too. That's why this government will set out plans to overhaul. You might as well just say work sets you free. Just go with the Auschwitz line at this point. UK benefits not sustainable, says Reeves. Yeah, she's capping. Straight line. This money goes back into the economy. There are multipliers here. And you've got the Labour Glazers, as always, and we'll go talk about a few of those. If there's no alternative to cuts, at least do them with care. Polly Toynbee. Embarrassing. This is essentially the government being set up to be able to defend, to hold the line here, and they just couldn't do it.
OK, I think we can be reassured by what you have said. I mean, we've had viewers all week saying the Labour government took away the winter fuel allowance from poorer pensioners. They've cut international development aid. Surely they aren't going to hit people with extreme disabilities. I know ITV at the weekend reported...
So, yeah, you've done all of these bad things, right? All of these horrible things, but you're not going to do something this bad, are you? You're not going to do a 9 out of 10 bad policy, are you?
the plan was to freeze or cut personal independent payments. From what you're saying, a Labour government, its principle is to support the most vulnerable, and therefore those Labour backbench fears there could be a cut in disability benefits for people who can't work. That is not on the table. That is not what you, as a Labour cabinet minister, could support.
What I'm here in saying is that these proposals will be set out. But this is a government that has been forced to take some very difficult decisions.
No, you haven't. You're doing this because you're dumb fiscal rules. That's why you're doing this, because you don't have the headroom you thought you would have, and you don't want to break your stupid fiscal rules.
In order to rebuild the foundations upon which our economy and society is built because of the inheritance that we had. We've taken those tough decisions, but we are also...
I felt more reassured by your answer when you were saying that this is not something a Labour government would ever want to do, and then you started telling us about your difficult choices.
Yeah, exactly. It's silly. Absolutely silly. Here we got a Labour government. This is Susanna Reid discussing this. And yeah, again, this if they weren't really planning on doing these things, and they didn't want the media to speculate and people to really discuss this, they would have come out and said the government should have called out these briefings and said these briefings are complete lies, they're unfabricated, we're going to find the source of them, we're going to deal with this.
Britain have been inundated with concern from viewers about the welfare cuts.
Changes, yeah.
And Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, says, well, don't get upset about all of the sources and briefing and all of that sort of, stuff that you've been hearing in the run-up to the Green Paper.
Things that have been briefed by people inside the government often.
But given...
There's your look, things that have been briefed by the government, for example.
Often. But that have been briefed by people inside the government often.
But given the opportunity...
Because the first time a story like this comes out, other people are going to be contacting their sources in the government and asking them what's going on. And you've got multiple outlets who covered this. The Times, I think, covered this, as well as ITV covered this.
Knock down people's concerns. He didn't. He didn't rule out the fact that personal independence payment will be frozen or cut. He did say that those with the most severe disabilities will still be supported. But people on PIP explain that, we had a charity talking to us on the programme this week, which say if you have a disability, it can cost an extra £1,000 a month simply to live your life. And so the anxiety that has been triggered by all of those sources and briefings has been enormous. People with terminal cancer wondering if their PIP payment's going to be frozen or cut. People with cerebral palsy, people with bipolar, people with...
They did make some good changes, so, people that have, long-term illnesses don't have to be constantly reassessed, but it's all been overshadowed by all of their stupid briefings because they want to set up the big punch, which is they're going to change the eligibility for PIP.
With chronic mental health conditions. And I think the government, a Labour government, he pointed out it's a Labour government, should come out and say, these are the people who do not need to worry.
Yeah, but, it's the classic thing of the deserving poor. Dr. Shani Danda saying 1 in 5 employers won't hire a disabled person. We are twice as likely to be unemployed and have to apply for 60% more jobs. There are only 23 truly remote jobs in disability confident organisations in the whole of the UK. Cutting PIP won't get more disabled people into work, which is true. Phil said tonight he didn't agree with the cuts as Labour haven't justified them, but it didn't stop him pointing out all the good things Labour have brought in. What good change? Yeah, I mean, he's always going to do that. He's always going to do that. Because he's a shill, he's a glazer, that's why. A Labour glazer. You got another one, and speaking of Labour glazers, you've got Sonia Soda saying the government ought to listen to disability experts like Tanya_GT. I think it says a lot that Starmer is a PM who appears to spend undisclosed sums setting up state-assisted dying bureaucracy, but is willing to cut disability benefits. Again, another glazer. Wonder what he... do you know what? Yeah, we'll have a statement from him later. Official statement. This is about a Labour MP being asked about what Andy Burnham said. So I would share concerns about changing support and eligibility to benefits while leaving the top-down system broadly in place. It would trap too many in poverty. That's what Burnham had to say. And there's no case for cutting the support available to disabled people unable to work. And this is what a Treasury Minister said.
To disabled people who are unable to work. Can you reassure us that that is not what's happening here, cutting the support to disabled people who are unable to work?
Well, as I've said, people who have severe disabilities, who are the most vulnerable, will always get support. And we absolutely believe in that safety net. And Andy Burnham also said that the Prime Minister is right to reform the system. But
if you say, Nigel Farage and the Tories say you're right to reform the system, it's a question of what reforms are you making? And you're making bad reforms. That's the problem. It's so silly, to use words in this way. You got Adrian Ramsey of the Green Party saying it's encouraging that a growing number of MPs are waking up to reality. Not only would cutting welfare support for our most vulnerable people be cruel and indefensible, there is a clear alternative, a wealth tax. So, there are alternatives here. You got Wes Streeting being asked simple questions and can't answer them.
There will be people listening to this on those benefits who are very, very concerned about their financial future. So I am just asking you a very simple question, which is, can you guarantee that no one who cannot work, physically cannot work, will have their benefits cut? Simple question.
I can tell you those people who cannot work are the people who need the help the most. And it is Liz Kendall's. It's been Liz Kendall's driving determination to make sure that people who need help most get the most help. I think everyone would agree that people who...
That's a debate tactic for you guys, this little class. Everyone would agree. So if you say a statement like everyone would agree, it's a debate tactic to say, look, we all agree on this specific point.
Cannot work through no fault of their own, deserve support, deserve to have...
But you're happy to change the criteria on that?
Have a good quality of life, and that's what the welfare safety net should provide. The welfare system should also be a springboard to help people back to work, because at the moment we've got 1,000 people signing on to personal independence payments every day. We've got 3 million...
But clearly, if they can sign on to it, they are eligible under the criteria that a Conservative government who doesn't like giving state welfare have set out. So again, if you're changing, why don't you look at why people are signing on for personal independence payments? Is it down to the fact that they have an illness or something that they need help managing, like autism? Is it something that they have a physical illness or a mental illness that can be managed or can't be managed? Why can't you look at what can the NHS do to actually help these people, rather than be all of these people are signing on, man, I'm so mad, man, we're going to change the criteria. Crazy business.
People, that's a size of Greater Manchester, who are economically inactive because of long-term sickness. We need to provide the wide range of support and improvements to help those who can work back to work. That is one of...
But that's what you do first. You don't go after, you don't use the stick first. You have to create a system where people can get healthcare and mental health care fast. That's what you got to do. Then you can look at reformations about getting people into work. Oh, a super chat, and of course, Alistair M. Kerr joining the Articon class, which you can join from as little as £1, and you can be Articon, or you can be really cool and go for the riding class. That would make my day. To be honest, we Scottish people did say Labour are red Tories by looks of it. Well, you're right. I would argue, yeah. I said this for a while as well. I've said that for a while. I've said, based on what they are telling us, it's Austerity 2.0, but I was told it's not an issue, it's a smokescreen, etc., etc., etc.
The key principles behind our welfare reforms.
So, yeah, thanks you for the super chat, mate. And it's just ridiculous, honestly.
I understand that, but I'm just asking a direct, simple question, which is, no one who is physically unable to work will have their benefits cut. Can you give that guarantee?
Well, as I say, those are the people who need the most help.
Yes, we agree on this point. They need the most help. So why were you being coy about this? This was the day before the announcement by Kendall, but this is the point here. They were told very much to hold the line until Kendall made the announcement.
And those are the people that the Work and Pensions Secretary has been thinking about most and wanting to prioritise as part of the welfare reforms. And I think it's kind of better for everyone. And you're right to say that there's anxiety out there. People who...
You could just stop it. You could have stopped the anxiety.
Who are sort of worried. And that's why I think it's right to not speculate endlessly. But
you guys put the speculation out there because you kept briefing the media. That's you. That's what these departments did at the DWP and the Treasury. You can't blame people for speculating when you've put the news out there. That's the point these idiots keep making. You know, not just him, all of them. Anyone who kept saying, oh, we need to stop speculating about this and wait, who put the speculation out there in the first place?
Tediously, and instead make sure that we are debating the welfare proposals when they are published rather than speculating about what might or might not be in there.
So why did you brief people in the first place, you dum-dum? You know, Starmer will be more left-wing, we were told. He's just playing three-dimensional chess, we were told. Well, he's hurtling to the lightning speed. What did the voices say now? Where are these people who kept covering Labour, who kept talking about them? He kept saying stuff like this.
Labour, I think the whole fiscal rules is just a massive smokescreen. I think massive smokescreen, massive smokescreen, massive smokescreen, massive smokescreen, massive smokescreen, massive smokescreen.
I'll play it again.
Massive smokescreen.
Do you guys think it's just a massive smokescreen? Do you guys think that? Yeah, it's a massive smokescreen. I want to find, sorry, the other one. I'm going to find the other one. Sorry, guys. Bear with me a minute. Happy about some of the producers are not going to be happy about.
It's not a big issue. It is not an issue.
Happy about some of the producers are not going to be happy about.
It's not a big issue. It is not an issue.
It's not an issue, guys. It's not an issue. Sorry, you don't understand. When I do this debate review, you don't understand how much fun I'm going to have. You genuinely, I've let the cat out of the bag, but you genuinely do not know how much fun I'm going to have with it. I'm going to clip that and put it onto my soundboard.
Is there a perverse incentive, as some politicians have said on this programme, within the welfare system that actually incentivises people to get a higher level of benefit from sickness benefit rather than being out of work and looking for work?
Well, I think all the charities have said that the basic rate of universal credit is inadequate. It's not something that you can live on. The amount of people on benefits, whether they are getting that higher level of universal credit or not, who are using food banks, who are going without essentials, is increasing.
Yeah, the idea that the Tories would have created this, life of luxury for people on welfare is crazy. Again, like, this is the party that cut as much as they could, slash and burn, effectively. And anyone who pushes the narrative that have Labour done an assessment on effects? No, they haven't. Sorry, another super chat from Alice. If they have, they haven't told us. But if you're clever, if you're really clever, right, what you do is you don't do impact assessments, because then they can't force a vote on things that don't exist. So, say for example, if the people come out and say, yeah, have the government done impact assessments on these things, etc. And you say no, then there's no way of it getting out. But if it does turn out they've done an impact assessment, they can force a vote on this. And this was, Starmer back then. A big difference in Keir then and Keir now. Labour will force a vote on unfair and unacceptable disability cuts. And now this is the guy we've got. And, her saying, because I couldn't get behind Labour with Jeremy Corbyn at the helm, Starmer offers some hope. But I don't want to be too mean to that. But you got Starmer here saying we inherit a fundamentally broken welfare system from the previous government. It does not work for people. It's supposed to support businesses who need workers or taxpayers who foot the bill. The government will always protect the most severely disabled people to live with dignity. But again, how do you define people with severe disabilities? Because clearly they want to change that. We're not prepared to stand back and, I'm getting sick of reading this stuff. This is how much it annoys me. You got here stats for lefties saying pro-Labour commentators who believe that Starmer will in fact abolish the two-child cap in power are fooling themselves. It isn't going to happen. If you vote for Labour, you're voting for austerity, privatisation of public support, public services even, and welfare cuts. Woof. Francis Ryan, who's a Guardian journalist, says drastic cuts to PIP will affect as many as 1 million disabled and ill people, pushing them into severe hardships, worsening health and isolation. There is no credible argument for pulling help from people shouldering the high cost of disability. Cruelty dressed up as reform. Facts. Again, 100%. Yeah, knew the obvious. Not knew the obvious, yeah. Some of us knew he was establishment pick even before the smears. He took part in the chicken goop. Another thing Bias Guy denies. Growth for UK projected to be around 2% this year and around 1.5% next, i.e. recession. 2% growth is quite good, to be fair. But yeah, we have actual good Labour MP here, Clive Lewis.
Millions of people, millions of our constituents who are using food banks, who are using social supermarkets, people who are on the brink. This £5 billion cut is going to impact them more than I think her department is giving credit for. And I would like her department to be able to...
I wish he was leader, to be honest.
...look my constituents in the eye when I go back to them to tell them that this is going to work for them. Because as things stand, my constituents, my friends, my family are very angry about this, and they do not think this is the kind of action that a Labour government takes.
All right, response?
I have great respect for my honourable friend, but let me just say this to him. I've spent years chairing Feeding Leicester, the programme to end hunger in my city. And I know that I can look my constituents in the eye and say to them, I know that getting more people into better paid jobs is the key to their future success. I know dealing with their mental health problems, which we know are so prevalent, is absolutely essential.
So what are you going to do to deal with people's mental health apart from push them further into the abyss with these changes?
We, the Labour Party, believe that if you can work, we will give you the help to get back
But again, if you think these people can work, why are you changing criteria for?
on your feet.
This is nonsense. You know, there was a clip I wanted to use, but I couldn't find it because it's too far down. When they were talking about we're the Labour Party, clues in the name. Let me see if I can find it quickly. Bear with 1 sec. Because I did see this a lot during. There it is. Here it is. Someone's got it on Reddit. So. That's coming soon. Here we go. I beg this is on video. I beg this on video. It's going to be so dead for people who are watching this. No, they've only got quotes, but yeah, no. That's what they said. We're the Labour Party. Clues in the name. It's crazy. That's what a cabinet minister said. Yeah, Shabana Mahmood. I'll just bring this up for you guys. I'll just close it after. Okay, so Cabinet Minister has said the clue is in the name when defending Labour's plans to slash welfare. Okay, this website is awful. But yeah, and it wasn't just her who said it, it was a few of them who said it. We're the Labour Party, clues in the name. Okay. What are you meant to say to that? Yeah, what jobs exactly? And on the flip side, we have a Wash Labour MP.
But as you say, these figures go back over years. You say the system is broken and has been for years. So why didn't you mention it in your manifesto? Why didn't you tell the country what you were clearly planning, wanting to do?
Well, look, the system that we're bringing forward today is in line with...
Oh yeah, Akis, what are you saying about listen to Scottish people? Isn't he Scottish?
What we've always wanted to do is to have a welfare state that's there for people who need support, but also...
Yeah, this is literally the language of the deserving poor versus the undeserving poor. This is the language of workhouses.
To get the maximum support available for people to get into work. I don't think anyone can be comfortable with the trends of recent years. When you are a government...
So what's changed recently then? What could have happened to have changed the way people live recently? Is it the pandemic? Is it down to the Conservatives making drastic cuts to social services as well as the hospitals and to mental health? I see a bit of column A, bit of column B. I'll let you guys decide that one.
It's your job to face up to big challenges facing the country, and I think reform of the welfare state is a big challenge facing the country, and we want to get that right today. So we'll be bringing forward a package which...
Yeah, it's just nuts. So, yeah, you know, some of these clips are from a couple of days ago. You know, Pat McFadden being asked about this doesn't care.
Richard has been in touch. He cares for his wife, Sharon. She suffered from epilepsy after a car crash 30 years ago. She had to stop work. He gets a carer's allowance. They get universal credit. She gets a PIP. And he says that waiting to find out today how this is going to affect their finances is like what he says is a slow torture.
Because people have to budget things, and you're talking about 70 quid, losing about 70 quid a week is a lot of money.
Yeah, I wish these ministers could see what we are going through at the moment. It is just horrendous. Couldn't you have handled the messaging of this better and not put people through what he describes as this slow torture?
Well, people won't have long to wait.
But they have.
People won't have long to wait. You should have killed this story from the start. But again, it was all a setup, guys. That's what this was. It was all a setup so they could get through the other changes they really wanted to get through.
Going on for weeks.
Look, we'll bring forward the announcement.
Yeah, sharp dude. And, back to a good Labour MP who has had the whip withdrawn, but actually good.
With 870,000 children living in PIP-receiving households, 290,000 of whom are already living below the poverty line, how can the government justify pushing more disabled people and children into poverty instead of pursuing fairer alternatives such as a 2% wealth tax on assets over 10 million? This would raise 24 billion, 5 times as much as those proposed from these cuts. Is Austerity 2.0 the change people really voted for?
Secretary of State.
Spending on working age, sickness and disability benefits will still rise substantially over this Parliament.
Yeah, of course it's going to rise because it's got to go up with inflation, silly. Of course it's going to rise.
The full assessments of the numbers affected and by how much will be published alongside the spring statement.
So we've got to wait for some of this stuff to come out. But again, she's put out this awful story out there, and we're going to have to wait for ages to figure out what specific changes are actually happening. And hear more from like experts.
What's your message to the Labour government if Liz Kendall is watching tonight, the Prime Minister's watching tonight, the Chancellor's watching tonight?
So we need more investment in public services. If we take benefit money away from people so they literally can't survive, then what will happen if
they do say they're not going to do that. Liz Kendall said it's not about that.
However, we know from past experience over the last decade and a half that has been happening.
But are you saying
we would like to see a reversal of that?
Going to be like the Tories?
If we look at the things that have been...
This is a person who's lost faith in the system. That's what's happening. And I don't blame her, to be honest with you, because when you look at the last lot we had and you look at the language being used, it's very similar. Very, very similar.
Leaked, it's worse than anything that the Tories did. What we're looking at, if our worst fears are confirmed, there will be immense additional pressures on social care services, on mental health services. There will also be a big rise in survival crime, so you can forget meeting targets for things like stopping shoplifting. It feels like a big social experiment if this goes ahead, and one that's going to cost lives and is going to destroy communities.
And it's not going to make the savings that they want, because again, people are going to need more support going forward. Damn, that's the avatar right there, got all the symbols. People are going to need more support going forward, and that's going to come at a cost, and people have to call out the ambulance because they're having, a mental health crisis. If they have to be sectioned, for example, because you've taken away the last, the money that they have that they need to live. A lot of these ministers don't, they either don't know what poverty looks like, or they've really forgotten what it's like to be poor and what it's got like to have to fight for a living, to survive. I think some of them people on AEG Plus have really forgotten what a hard life looks like. I would love it if we had a challenge where they had to actually live on that amount of welfare. I would love it. This is Ava Santina.
Rachel Reeves's economic policy has gone to the right of Thatcher, because Thatcher might have closed the mines, but she did at least let people go on the dole. Whereas Rachel Reeves is like,
no dole.
Nothing.
Can I have a job? No.
Yeah, she'd say, get back to work somewhere else. You got a job in Cyberlad. That's what she'd be saying.
The line is totally inconsistent, though, because the programme that they've been presenting to us for the last couple of months has been like, we want to get people back into work and we want to help people get back into work. Taking away someone's accessibility car, I would argue, would prevent them from getting into work. So it doesn't quite add up, right?
Yeah.
PIP affects people who are also in work as well. PIP is a non-means tested benefit. So even if you're in work, you can still claim PIP. You take that away from people, and maybe they use that money for therapy appointments or whatever they use on. You've taken away support that they had and that they needed.
If you want to make it easier, there are a lot of people who are on, say, prescription medicines who don't feel that they can go into work, and Labour wanted to offer them job coaches and they wanted to offer them therapy to get, to help them get back into the workplace. If you cut all of the support, before they're... What are they going to do?
Previously, we had...
It's literally the point. Like, you're putting the cart before the horse. That's what's happening here. Is they're doing all of these severe cuts and stuff like that, and they're taking, they haven't provided the support people need in order to get back into work. They haven't created there's still massive amounts of vacancies and stuff like that. Like, are you going to push people into retail, or are you going to push people into care homes, or what jobs do you actually want them to get? What do you want them to do? No, there's more. A Labour voter saying they're not voting for Labour again.
I'm a Labour supporter. I have been all my life. I'm in my 50s. I voted for them since I was 18. Never again.
Obviously, you got to take some of these callers on God. Like, you got to believe that they're being, what's the word, honest.
I will never vote for the Labour Party ever again
because of this.
Not just this, the fact that they are picking constantly on the most vulnerable in society. First the winter fuel allowance, now the disabled. This is worse than the Tories ever did. They are completely immoral, and if my benefits get cut, I don't know what I'm going to do.
There you go. You're taking away like your own support base. So who is this for? Like, you're going to do all of this balancing the books for who? Like, what? I just don't get it. The whole fiscal rule thing was complete garbage, honestly. Such nonsense. I warn you about Liz Kendall. Yeah, a decade ago, when she was there under Ed Miliband, really, that she was a complete fraud. They told us they wanted to cut things like winter fuel allowance. They told us they want to cut things like benefits. Will be more harsh than the Tories. People chose to ignore who these people were. They are Tories. And Rachel Reeves, Liz Kendall, they're Conservatives. You got this absolute bozo here talking about how people are being, how there's an overdiagnosis of mental health conditions. Didn't realise Wes was a doctor, mate.
One of the areas where you are, we understand, going to try and claw back money, who's people who've been signed off because of mental health problems. And
this is another thing I told you. This is what that big feint, that attack on PIP was about. They're attacking mental health conditions, setting the stage so they can probably change the criteria around mental health and the eligibility of people who can sign on, because again, you can't physically see if someone's got a mental health condition. If I've got a broken leg, you can see it. If I'm dealing with really bad anxiety, they're going to say, oh, you're faking. We've only really taken mental health seriously post World War I, when they talked about shell shock.
Now, in the last few days, it's interesting, the prominent neurologist Suzanne O'Sullivan has said there's overdiagnosis of mental health problems. Your
proper state media nonsense as well. All of those people kept saying, oh, the Tory media and all of this stuff. Right here, you have Laura Kuenssberg teeing up Wes Streeting with all of this stuff. So the idea that it's a Tory media is not really true. It's a small c conservative media who push conservative ideals, and that's got to tell you, if Laura Kuenssberg is backing this policy, I wonder what kind of policy this is.
Colleague Liz Kendall, when she was here, talked about the problems of self-diagnosis when people feel that they might have a condition. Do you believe, as the Health Secretary, that too many people are being treated as sick and incapable of work for essentially struggling with what are quite normal feelings?
Normal? What, anxiety and depression are normal? Is that what she was talking about?
People are being treated as sick and incapable of work for essentially struggling with what are quite normal feelings.
Well, I want to follow the evidence, and I
excuse me,
agree with that point about overdiagnosis.
What evidence? Is this your evidence?
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
What's your source?
Diagnosis, but here's the other thing. I mean, mental well-being, illness. It's a spectrum, right? And
but you do think there's overdiagnosis?
I think there's an overdiagnosis, but also there are too many people being written off.
They're not being written off. Like, people have to go to get reassessed. It's not, this idea that people have been written off is simply untrue.
And to your point about treatment, there's too many people who just aren't getting the support they need.
That's your job to fix that.
So if you can get that support to people much earlier, then you can help people to either stay in work or to get back to work. And that's why we're recruiting 8,500 more mental health staff to make sure we can get the waiting list down.
8,500 staff over how many millions of people that live in this country? Are you talking about, is that for England and Wales, which we run our NHS separate to Scotland and Northern Ireland? Or is that for the whole of the United Kingdom and Northern Ireland?
And also starting early, so making sure we've got mental health support in every primary and secondary school in the country, so we can give people that resilience and those coping skills they'll need for life.
But you do believe there's a problem with overdiagnosis. What then would your message then be to...
Why don't you ask him for a source, dumbass? Ask him what's his information. Where do you get it from?
Medical professionals watching this, should they take more care to diagnose mental health conditions? What would you say to them?
What you did, this is what I mean. This is straight briefing, straight Tory media, a proper tee up, saying, oh, medical professionals should change how they diagnose people. Are you an idiot? Like, no, you don't do stuff like that. You don't tell doctors how to do their job.
To an extent, but I also think it's on us to make sure that we're giving people the tools to do the job, and that we've got the right care plans, the right pathways for patients. And that's why some of the great stuff that Liz and I have seen in Maudsley and South London, for example, where they've combined that employment support with mental health support, can be really powerful. And so
you need to expand that out then and make sure everyone's got that before you start making cuts.
To be honest, it feels a lot less scary and a lot less punitive than sometimes conversations with the DWP feel.
Well, obviously, you don't want to have those conversations with the DWP because they're not experts on this. They don't understand these things. Crazy. From one wash Labour MP to a good one.
We're seeing the long-term impact of austerity, of increasing and entrenched inequality, of public services crumbling. We've made a good start to fixing that in some areas, like record NHS funding, increases in workers' rights. Now we have to go further, and that cannot include a continuation of what George Osborne and David Cameron did. I mean, George Osborne said himself that freezing PIP was one step too far, even for him. And this is the man who cut billions from the welfare budget to the extent...
Do you know why he didn't cut PIP? Because it's not an in-work benefit, that's why.
That the UN said that his welfare reforms resulted in grave and systemic violations of disabled people's rights. Ed Balls, our former Shadow Chancellor, has said that it won't work and it's not a Labour thing to do. Now, look, none of my colleagues, not a single one of my colleagues, became Labour MPs to make the poor poorer. We believe that those with the broadest shoulders should bear the greatest burden.
Are you sure about that? Because I don't think that's true. I don't think people like Liz Kendall and Rachel Reeves really believe that. Even my MP's back in this. I'm going to have to write to him and tell him, bro, what the hell are you doing?
That's what the Prime Minister said. The government has reiterated again this week that people who can't work must be supported and protected. But it's not enough for us to just say that. We have to actually do it.
Which is again a great point. You keep saying, oh, the most needy will be supported, or the people that are the most sick and whatever. But then you go ahead and change criteria. You changing the criteria on who is sick. The Conservatives did that with changing definitions of child poverty. And they said, look at all these kids we dragged out of poverty. John McDonnell on this?
From 1.9 million 10 years ago to 3.3 million today. That is a huge increase, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And I tell you why. For a number of years, I've been arguing that the cuts under the austerity measures of the last government withdrew lots of services, particularly to young people, and particularly support for families. So what we have now is a build-up of all the problems caused by that are hitting us. So what we've got to do is look at a strategy over the next few years in which we can restore the support that those people had. And I have to, I'm not getting political about this, but I have to say a number of us were saying to the last government, when you cut the support, particularly to young people and families, you eventually, what will happen is there will be a build-up of problems that will hit us. So I just think we're inheriting real problems as a result of poor judgment of the last government.
Which is true, but also you're adding to it by making these changes. That's the problem. You haven't learnt properly the lessons.
Diagnosis.
So this is a response to, what's his name, that idiot, West Streeting?
Of mental health conditions.
No, I think there's been an increase in mental health issues. When you think about rates of depression and anxiety amongst young people, rates of suicide, the amount of people that have suicidal thoughts or are self-harming, those rates have gone up over the last decade or so. We've had a global pandemic, which has made people feel more isolated. We've had the cost of living crisis. Rents are going up, energy bills are going up, water bills are going up, council tax is going up. A lot of people feel way more insecure, way more economically insecure. And I think the other thing in society is that we've had a lot of work being done to challenge the stigma around mental health. People are a lot more comfortable talking about mental health. So I think in the past, a lot of people would have been reluctant to seek help. And I know people, personal friends of mine, who have gone out.
And so I think that's been the real game changer. So this idea that, you know, people are just self-diagnosing or whatever, it's like, no, you know, the term shell shock, you know, PTSD, these are relatively new terms in the history of humanity. Like, when you look at things like, people understood things like broken limbs and decaying teeth and things like that, but things like actual mental health, we did, you know, it's been, I think, way more recent than anything, really. And we still don't understand a lot of things. You know, they used to think kids with ADHD, you know, were massively problematic and things like that until they actually understood it properly. Even then, in America, they still, you know, prescribe them drugs.
Some of them don't even get the diagnosis. So I think this is a lot more complicated than a society-wide trend where people automatically just decided, oh, you know, we all have anxiety and depression. And again, this, you know, it's a spectrum. There's different levels. Some people have anxiety and depression and they still go into work and try to get through it. And there's others who are dealing with severe mental health issues. And I think on that front, we're not doing enough to support people with those issues.
There's also people with different tolerance levels as well. Like, some people can, you know, have an awful day and still manage to get into work and things like that. And there are people who just can't. And they're the ones who need help as well. Like, you know, despite the fact that they might be having more minor issues in than someone else, like, people can only manage how much they manage. Yeah, there's this guy being quizzed on it, this MP.
Where's the evidence that mental health issues are being overdiagnosed, as the health secretary claimed on television yesterday?
So here you have what Laura Kuenssberg should have been doing.
Well, we've seen, and I think in your presentation that Nick was speaking to, about the increase in psychiatric conditions which have led to applications for PIP.
Sure. But where's the evidence that there's overdiagnosis?
Well, some might say that that in and of itself is suggestive of.
So you won't answer the question. It's suggestive.
But look,
really?
I think
the charity, the mental health charity, Mine, would really like to know where the evidence is.
I've seen Mine's email that sent to MPs today, and I really want to meet with them to discuss that further. But
let's discuss it now.
I think this issue.
Yeah, no, bro.
Do you know where the evidence is?
Just bear with me a minute, Victoria. I think this issue of mental health, diagnosis and disability is much more complex than one government action or one piece of legislation. We need to have a grown-up conversation as a government, as a culture, as a society, about how we deal with mental health phenomenon, about making sure it's good that we're talking about it much more as a society than we were a decade ago. That's a positive thing, but we need to make sure that we're not over clinicalising some of these issues.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Well,
I beg, please, get Derbyshire the Big Show. Honestly, just what do you mean? Easy questions. That's all she has to do. Easy questions, making this guy look like a complete moron, which is what should have happened to Wes Streeting.
We need to be careful that when people are suffering from issues which don't need to be receive clinical treatment for, that they're not.
Well, but surely the medic is the best person to make that assessment, and that's what's happening.
Well, at times, the system, I think many people, my constituents, come to me and they think the system doesn't work in a fair way for people who do need treatment and those that don't and perhaps are receiving it.
Yeah, do you know why? Because the people are idiots. They're like, why should they get help when I need it? You're so dumb. You realise how bad your answer is, right? People are jealous of the other people getting support when they think they're entitled to it. Classic English mentality of why should they get something when I pay taxes and whatever. Idiot.
So we need to make sure the system is fair and workable. And as I say, you know, that is a complex discussion.
If you genuinely believe, oh no, is the stream dead? Is it working? Are we back? Can you guys hear me okay? Anyone? But yeah, this is what I mean, guys. Like, this guy completely flailing. He's got no answer. Doesn't know what he's talking about, and now he's quoting constituents.
That needs a big conversation across the country.
If you think there's an issue where people who deserve to get support and are not, and people who don't deserve support are getting it, then clearly there's a problem with criteria. But this answer here, complete nonsense, been dismantled beautifully by Derbyshire. Like, honestly, he's got nothing. He's flailing around. I might do this as a separate video, to be honest. I might do this one. Yeah, do you know what? We're gonna do this one as its own video, because that's how good, like, the level of journalism is compared to Laura Kuenssberg. Do you know what? We'll pair them, actually. Have I got the... Yeah, that's what we'll do. Where's that idiot? We're going to pair these two together. And, you know, good journalism versus bad journalism. And, yeah. happy about some of the
massive smokescreen, massive smokescreen, massive smokescreen. I think massive smokescreen. Gonna have to probably change these rules on this.
But again, based on what
I think the whole fiscal rules is just a massive smokescreen.
So yeah, has this clip aged well, guys?
Massive smokescreen, massive smokescreen.
Do we think it was indeed a
massive smokescreen, massive smokescreen?
So, you know, the only thing that's aged well here is me, because I've got a beard now. I don't know where my beard was. This is not even that long ago. It's kind of scary. In the space of a year, I've grown a beard. So yeah.
Massive smokescreen, massive smoke.
And I'm convinced that these people just want someone to lie to them. I'm convinced this song's such a banger as well. It's sad I had to use it in a video like this. Honestly, but yeah, I'm convinced that these guys just want someone to lie to them. Honestly, they just want Labour to lie to them. It's just so sad. And yeah, you know, when Labour lose to Reform or some sort of right-wing party, if the Tories manage to come back, we can figure out what happened.
Need more info? Just look in the official rulebook under the heading "How'd I Lose?" So I'll discard this.
So yeah, if you need more info, look under the official heading of "How'd I Lose?"
If you need more info, just look in the official rulebook under the heading "How'd I Lose?"
Just ridiculous, honestly. I just can't. I could play this on loop all day.
Smokescreen, massive smokescreen, massive smokescreen.
That's how much I love this clip. So if you guys want to know, I put up a community post. I don't think anyone really saw it, to be fair. Let's see. Did anyone see it? Nope, no one saw it. But do you know what? Do you know what we're going to do? We're going to do a debate review of this one. A classic. Probably one of the performances I regret most. One of the debates I regret most. Because, yeah, the guy debated was a complete clown. But we're going to go through and just have a look at how well has this aged. In terms of his takes, in terms of things that I said, because you know what, out of all of the nonsense, all of the sad stuff, the fact that YouTube's not going great, let's take a victory lap for once. So the only thing that's really worse than his takes are Liz Kendall's glasses, because yeah, I don't know what I don't know who's giving them advice on this stuff, right? But this is some of the worst spectacles I've ever had the honor of laying my eyes on. So from one spectacle wearer to another, please, Liz, get better glasses.